It was in those voice lessons, though, that I really came alive. I realized how to inhabit my body, how to really use my voice. I learned so much about communication and subtext. I could go on.
Yeah, no, it's
but so much of it too, especially with classical singing, I fell in love with, I really mean the word discipline, like true perfectionism, about getting every note right, about working with other instrumentalists in real time to perform. I just fell in love with it.
From Fiore Communications, it's How I Got Here, a show of inspiring stories from Tallahassee area leaders, business owners, and neighbors, all the challenges, opportunities, inspirations, the twists and turns of life that led them to where they are today. Everyone has a story worth telling, and I am really grateful that we get to bring a few of them to you. I truly have been changed by my conversations with these amazing people, and I'm confident you will be too. I'm Dave Fiore, and in this episode, I speak with Emily Saras, CEO and data scientist with Knowli Data Science. The self-described overachiever with a nerd persona loved field hockey in high school and was her class valedictorian in her hometown of Hopedale, Massachusetts. Emily entered prestigious Wellesley College with plans to be a doctor, only to make a significant pivot to study anthropology and opera singing. Wanting to connect with her family heritage, she earned a scholarship to study ethnomusicology and opera performance in Lithuania, under the nation's top soprano. Emily spent 2 more years studying in Europe before returning home as an AmeriCorps fellow, where she worked with underserved Boston teens. It was there that Emily was recommended for a position at Florida State, which she took thinking it would be a short-term stop in her life journey. She was wrong. Emily would go on to earn her PhD in sociology from FSU, fall in love with Tallahassee, and get connected with Knowli, a women-owned company that translates big data for policymakers in a variety of fields, including health and human science agencies and educational institutions across the Southeast. Emily says her journey to CEO has been a joyful challenge, and she greatly appreciates the opportunity to serve as the company's cultural ambassador. We begin our conversation talking about growing up in a small town just outside Boston.
Yeah, it's a tiny little town.
Okay.
It was founded in the 1800s as this idyllic, utopian loom town, so making textiles.
Oh, okay.
And everybody in the town that worked there lived in the town. It was kind of this ideal, intentional society. But by the time in the 90s I was growing up there, it was a different vibe.
Is there any holdover from the textile stuff? Is there any companies that represent that from
No, not at all. In fact, the loom was just torn down in the last decade to make way for who knows what. But
so you mean there was a giant loom somewhere?
Yes, a really large factory with this river that was powering the factory, kind of running through it. And so this river in town is kind of the center of this special little town where there's lots of duplexes and little paths to connect all the houses together. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun and funky little place.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what was your childhood like? What was it like growing up in such an idyllic kind of little community?
Well, it's the kind of town where, there were less than 50 people in my graduating high school class in public school. So you know everyone, you know their middle names, you know what's going on at home. So in some ways, I look back and think about how high pressure it was to kind of grow up in this certain kind of suburban, small Massachusetts town. Our high school class was very competitive, very, nerdy, competitive folks who all wanted to make it big outside the town.
Yeah.
But for me, I was just real focused on school, participating in every last activity. When there's only 50 kids in the graduating class, you can be in the school play and in jazz band and in after school, chess club. So there was a lot to do.
Yeah. All right. So tell me about your family, parents, siblings. What was your family unit like for you as a child?
Yeah. Growing up, I had a lot of kind of examples of education. My dad was doing his MBA while I was a young child. He's an engineer. My mom was working in the school system. I have a brother. He's turned out to be a genius creative writer and a script reader in Hollywood. So he does cool stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, growing up, we were just involved in a lot of music activities after school, a lot of different sports. So,
okay.
yeah.
Well, so I was going to ask you, what kind of things were you interested in other than academics in school?
Oh, field hockey was such a big passion of mine.
Yeah.
I think I just really enjoyed running around and hitting things for an hour.
So field hockey is kind of a combination of hockey and soccer, sort of, right?
That's a really fair assessment.
Right?
Yes. And I would play the midi position, which is a little defense, a little offense. So I get to score a little, get to defend a little bit. Yeah, it works that way. It's kind of like lacrosse is getting big down here.
Yeah,
so,
super big.
Yeah.
Were you a hockey fan growing up?
Not really.
Yeah, not a Bruins fan?
So here's the thing. I grew up in that sweet spot or that not so sweet spot when all of Boston sports were doing terribly in the 90s. So I didn't really have a lot to cling to.
Right.
I know a lot of folks,
It was before Tom Brady.
It was before the Brady.
Yeah.
It was Nomar Garciaparra was just great for maybe 1 month. So I wasn't really a sports fan in that way,
Right.
but I liked being active.
You also don't have that Boston accent.
No, but I apparently did growing up, and it just kind of gets coached out of you. I mean, there's definitely, unfortunately, some stigma. I think things have changed that actors have gotten famous for their awesome accents and Dunkin' Donuts ads. But,
Sure.
but my family definitely has strong Boston accents, and the Wickeds will come out if you get me in the right mood.
That's funny. All right, did you have any career goals or a plan mapped out for your life or anything at the high school level? Did you see anything in the future for yourself?
Gosh, I think I really had, this mindset as a young person that I just wanted to do everything I could do, be everything I could be, but also was really myopic. I was really focused on getting to an elite school, like Harvard University was my dream. I don't know if I thought much beyond that. I thought maybe I'll be a doctor. I think a lot of the classic things, like I want to help people, I want to build a meaningful career. Didn't know it would take all of these twists and turns back then.
Right.
I think I just really thought like, gosh, I'm a gal who's moderately good in sciences and math, so maybe that's where I'm supposed to go. Eventually I didn't and then made my way back. But yeah, I was a really high overachiever. I really had my eye on the prize for being class valedictorian. I just really wanted to earn a top spot at a great school. And then it wasn't clear from there,
Right.
which, gosh, I'm thankful for now.
So were you valedictorian?
I was. Made it through.
Nice.
Yeah. But I think that was maybe my first real experience realizing that the achievement isn't really everything. It's the journey that gets you there.
Right.
So I kind of learned right when I was turning 18, like, it's not just the check marks on the page and it's not just the big achievements, but it did take a lot to get there.
Well, that's pretty insightful for an 18-year-old.
I've had to learn that lesson again and again over the decades.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. So speaking of doing well and being a valedictorian, I saw that you're a member of Mensa.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Which is for those who don't know, for the rest of the world, a high IQ society, right? For people who score at least 98% on the IQ tests. So how did you get involved with that, and where did that fall into the picture?
Gosh, yeah, I mean, my big old brain. I honestly took the test really recently in the last couple of years because I was really just curious about maybe better understanding how my brain might think differently than other folks, because I'm still learning in my current role about how to best lead and coach teams, especially of really, really intelligent and achievement-minded people. And yet at the same time, I had some thinking back to, college math experiences where I didn't get perfect scores or I didn't understand things as quickly, and trying to make sense of,
Right.
Is that a cognitive issue? Is that just a learning and environment and socialization issue? I think it's a lot of the latter, but that's my sociology brain talking.
Right.
But yeah, I was just really curious, and I like puzzles. So sign me up for word problems.
Or escape rooms.
Hey,
Yeah, I'm bringing you
always
next
down.
time when we do an
Please
escape
do.
room.
That's right.
Yeah, we've done a couple here, and we did okay last time. First time wasn't so good, so we could use a good puzzle solver. All right, so you didn't end up going to Harvard, but you went to Wellesley College.
I did.
Right, in nearby Boston, right, as we've established. So that is obviously in a very elite, well-known school that's had some amazing alumni. I saw Diane Sawyer, Madeleine Albright, Hillary Clinton. So it is a very prestigious liberal arts college. So And is it just women?
It is.
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, they have a definition that's really inclusive of trans folks and other gender
Sure.
identities. But yeah, I look back and I really think that was the place that I was meant to be in an environment where every leadership position on different school organizations or every opportunity is something that is achievable, that you don't have to think about gender, or you don't have to think about, I think, those evolving kinds of relationships, especially when you're in young adulthood. And to really just kind of be yourself and fully dedicate your passions to academia and any of those other extracurriculars. It was a really great 4 years of growth and really opening my eyes. Because again, in my teenage years, I was pretty myopic. I was pretty focused on school or any school adjacent pieces, where when I got to Wellesley, my mind was so challenged in that first year, encountering much more diverse folks than were in our
Than
small
your 50-person class?
our small class back in Hopedale. So yeah.
So did that take some adjustment?
Oh, heck yeah. My pre-med goals were thrown out the window, and I fully, it took me 2 years and a struggle through organic chemistry when I really said, I think I'm going to just go all in on this opera singing passion that I've developed, and I think I'm going to try anthropology on for size and see how that goes. And I just fell in love with those disciplines, and I'm so thankful for what they taught me. So...
All right. Yeah, well, let's talk about the singing part. So I know from my experiences adjacent to the FSU College of Music, which is, a great school here in the Southeast, that one does not just jump into a program like that you have to have skills and talent and some experience. So I'm assuming you didn't just decide out of the blue that you wanted to be an opera singer. So what was your past, and what led you up to being able to explore that as a college option for you?
Well, gosh, you would be surprised. I did totally jump in.
You did?
When I arrived on campus and there were just, opportunities to audition to be able to take opera classes or vocal performance classes for credit, I said, sure, I'll audition. Now, of course, I had been singing about every week as a cantor in my Catholic church growing up, so I was very used to singing and performing in front of folks, but I'd always had it in that context of either church or maybe a school play or maybe, a solo and jazz band. I never really had thought that the creative discipline could take me forward in any way. So I had thought, I have to go to school and study serious things. It was in those voice lessons, though, that I really came alive. I realized how to inhabit my body, how to really use my voice. I learned so much about communication and subtext. I could go on.
Yeah, no, it's
but so much of it too, especially with classical singing, I fell in love with, I really mean the word discipline, true perfectionism, about getting every note right, about working with other instrumentalists in real time to perform. I just fell in love with it. So I then signed up for every possible club and lesson, and I really threw myself into singing. And it was with my teacher, Aaron Sheehan. He's a tenor and early music extraordinaire. He's Grammy-winning and very accomplished, but he really taught me kind of how to be a human and step outside my nerd persona. So
you had put yourself in that box, you think?
I think so. I think especially growing up in a town of such a small class, I think we all ended up subconsciously or not kind of playing a role or playing into the stereotypes that you would see on your classic coming-of-age high school drama. So I think I fell in the nerd and absurd box, and I still love that identity, but music really gave me this chance to grow.
That's awesome. Same experience Zac Efron had in High School Musical, but slightly different context. So you began actually studying the music and growing and singing, and we'll talk about where that led, which is kind of part of your whole path in a minute, but also anthropology. So your study of, I'm embarrassed to even say it. So anthropology is a study of people, right?
Yes, people and culture.
Right.
Some subdisciplines focus on sociology and societal development. I was also really interested in physical anthropology, looking at human evolution. There's a lot of cool work that's also done in kind of the creative anthropology, visual anthropology, doing documentaries and collecting other media to capture different cultures. I think I was reflecting on this, I was really hungry for something that helped me look outside my own worldview. So that kind of awakening started happening my first couple semesters at Wellesley, just meeting other people. But anthropology courses really taught me a methodology to think about culture is a text. It's a secret textbook that we're all reading and learning from and not aware of at the same time. And how do people experience the world differently? And how do they organize differently?
Right.
Just really fascinating stuff.
Yeah. So overall, your college experience sounds like it was enlightening, empowering, like a really good experience for you.
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, definitely with challenges and a lot of sleepless nights and maybe some behaviors I had to unlearn about, procrastinating or working.
Where you could kind of just slide by with some stuff in high school that wasn't flying in college.
No, totally different
everybody
standards.
Goes through that to some degree, I think.
Yeah.
But, all right, so after Wellesley, you earned, or at the end of that time, I guess, you earned a Fulbright scholarship to study ethnomusicology and opera performance in Lithuania.
Heck yeah.
So, tell us about that. That is an interesting next step. And did you even know, when did you realize that something like that was possible? You apply for the scholarship and you get it and then you apply it in that way. I'm really interested in that whole process.
Absolutely. So I think I have to go all the way back and give the context that my dad's parents are refugees from Lithuania. So while he didn't really grow up, speaking Lithuanian, I only learned, words for 25 cents to a piece to impress my grandparents. There was always...
They gave you a quarter if you learned a word?
Oh, yes. And I think, with my parents, with my parents' help, and I was a clever little kid too, I learned how to count, which is really repetitive and pattern matching. So I could just count to 10 and then
add the words
together to get all the way up to 100. So
So you maximized the cash value of that process.
Look,
when you were
early on, baby CEO.
That's funny.
No, so I'd always had an interest in, just like anybody's origin story in understanding where they came from, what their history was. And it is really complicated having left during wartime and things like that. So when I was in an anthropology course, I was actually studying in a Central European and Baltic Studies anthropology course. And one of my professors, Philip Cole, had encouraged me, there's nothing wrong with research. Start with yourself. Start with, understanding your own pathway. You're a subjective human. So I started looking into the music culture in Lithuania. Actually, my middle name is Dana. It means folk song.
Okay.
So YouTube early days, I'm looking up Dana, Lithuania, and I realized there are these whole folk song festivals that are part of the national culture. Thousands of people gathering in these specialized stadiums built just for this purpose to sing, dozens of folk songs that everybody knows it's just wild. You can't really think of something like that in the United States culture. So
I would think it almost like the mountain culture, or the hillbilly, the folk music culture, right? It may be passing down by generation stuff that's not even written down.
Absolutely.
That kind of stuff. Is it similar to that maybe?
And then add in the flavor that some of these songs were kind of suppressed by different historical groups over time to not really engage in Lithuanian folk culture when there's kind of more like Russified national culture across the former Soviet Union. So there's a lot
to break down those local cultures.
Bingo.
Right. Yeah.
You named it. You should join the anthropology course. You've nailed it.
Yeah.
So I just really wanted to better understand this. And I looked at the calendars and realized, I can apply for a grant for a summer to go and see one of these folk song festivals live, and I'll write up a report on it. While I was there that first year, so this was when I was a junior in college, I also said, while I'm here, why don't I see if there's an opera singer who I can take lessons from at the conservatory? Not realizing that they would pair me with Sigutė Stonytė. She's like the golden voice of Lithuania. She's very known for being the leading soprano kind of in the Baltic region. Very strict, very, very demanding. But we built this amazing relationship that summer. So then I said, what's a way I can get back? How can I pursue this? I'm not sure if I fully see the long-range picture, but what are the steps to get there? And actually, I think anthropology, at least the professors that taught me, they did such a good job disciplining you in taking an idea and turning it into a project, figuring out how to get funding, figuring out how to make it academic, and to actionize it. So my professor just helped me whip up my first grant proposals. And I think I've never stopped writing grant proposals since then.
Yeah.
So
that's great. So so you were able to stay there for a while, right? You ended up staying there for 2 more years.
I did.
Right?
Yeah.
And doing just what were you doing during that time?
So I was doing, on one hand, I was continuing to study opera with Seguta Stonita. So that involved, a lot of the former Soviet tradition is I was in ballet classes, acting classes, movement classes, solfeggio classes, music theory classes, just very robust training.
What is solfeggio?
Oh, like do, re, mi, fa, sol.
Oh, okay.
So being able to sight read in that and different keys and things like that.
All right.
So I was doing that. And then I was also doing interviews with folks using my anthropological, my baby ethnographic skills of interviewing folks who were either connected to folk music culture or who had attended folk music events, going to observe at folk music events, and try to make sense of that connection between folk music and political life. One thing that was really interesting was in covering, and they're, surprising to Westerner, but not surprising at all to a Lithuanian, there are often secret verses or secret extra words that are added into songs that can have kind of political meanings.
Oh, okay.
So translating a folk song, 1, 2, 3, beautiful Lithuania without Russians might be a secret, a secret add-in word. Or
that wouldn't be noticed by outsiders.
Right, wouldn't be in the lyrics.
Right, right.
But would be known as kind of extra words. And so figuring out when those were performed in public settings and why, what those contexts were.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right, so did you ever consider music as a career after this period?
After this
or
period.
Or during this period?
Well, during this period, I realized I was making a shift. I felt really connected to the anthropological work that I was doing. And I also got these additional grants from the United States Embassy there. Started as helping as a babysitter for a lot of the expat kids and then realizing and learning a lot more about kind of the diplomatic process. So I would do these concerts with grant funding of Jewish music for kind of Holocaust remembrance and Holocaust education events, or I did tolerance education workshops in the countryside alongside other diplomats. Really, again, kind of blending that anthropological and creative work together to kind of spark conversations that were definitely newer to the region about diversity, inclusion, things that are hot topics today.
Yeah.
But we're really kind of new on the forefront in Eastern Europe at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you still sing?
No, I'm so out of shape, and I regret this. It's definitely something that I wanted to incorporate back into my life, but I'm still trying to figure out how. Trying to keep balance and also make sure that I don't creep back into these ways of conservatory where it's perfect or it's nothing. Right. And I think I got to find the middle ground.
Maybe some karaoke. With that.
You can catch me at karaoke, that's for sure.
Oh, okay. All right. And so while you were abroad, you also studied at Central European University.
Yes.
Right, in Budapest. So were you doing research there still, or what were you pursuing in Hungary?
Essentially, I was taking all of that field work that I had captured, and field work meaning all of the notes, recordings, interview documents, things that I had collected throughout my Fulbright experience and those continued grant years, and was analyzing them from a social anthropological lens, so trying to make sense of how different state actors are involved in funding through the Ministry of Culture, these different folk songs events, and also it was just a really awesome program. So this is a university that's founded by George Soros. It's now located, I believe, in Vienna, Austria, but at the time it was in Budapest, Hungary, and it's super international. So for a fully funded one-year master's program to be around an awesome international cohort of people, I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
And it was easier to say no to one more year studying in Italy in opera and not really sure where I was going.
Right.
I followed the grant funding. Classic story of me.
There you go. Follow the money. So how would you say this whole European experience shaped you as a person and your outlook on life? And how were you different when you came back from your European experience than when you got there?
That's such an interesting question. Sometimes I look back on those years and I almost feel regret because I think about all of the lessons that maybe it's taken me a decade since to learn. This experience really planted seeds in me. But again, I was between 20 and 24 during these years. So, I was learning about intercultural communication, how to build and maintain relationships with people from different backgrounds and cultures and ideologies, learning how to navigate different school or political situations or diplomatic contexts.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud. I'm the kind of person who bites off more than she can chew and tries to make sense of what's going on at the time. When I came back from my years in Europe, I was really changed to be more service-oriented. Instead of just chasing what was interesting, I started chasing what I knew could make an impact. So when I was at Central European University, I served as the president of the student union. And while it was just, a 20,000 euro budget, we started really thinking, instead of just doing the same old events that the student union puts on every year, how can we do something different? What can we fund that'll create new conversations? I think I really started pivoting to thinking how I could make an impact, measure my impact, be a better citizen in society. So that's what I really take back. It's funny to go to Europe and then come back and feel like I've learned how to be better in my home country through my time abroad.
Right.
But it's true.
Yeah. And you did come back, right, as an AmeriCorps fellow?
Yeah.
Back home. So what did that involve and how did you come back in that role?
Well, first for AmeriCorps, I would recommend this to anybody. This was a really important chapter for me in my professionalization because if you looked at my resume, it looked like I had been singing, doing these random grants, hadn't had a kind of stable, consistent job, but had proven that I knew how to get things done. So this year of service was serving teens in Boston's South End, so an under-resourced neighborhood, a lot of students who really didn't aspire to go to college or have post-graduation, post-secondary plans. So a lot of my work there was doing college and career counseling, building a mentorship program within my host site, and then also doing a lot of training on how to work with people, work with young people, make an impact. So I was just really hungry for this at the time. It's a program through Northeastern University, so I also got to take some leadership courses at that time. It was just kind of like a very nourishing year of service.
Yeah. And we'll be right back. How I Got Here is sponsored by Barano Heating and Air Conditioning in Tallahassee. I've been friends with Patrick Barano since we met in a chamber leads group about 15 years ago. I'll admit that I pursued him pretty hard to be his marketing firm and eventually won him over. And the reason I wanted to work with him is that I was already a customer and I knew what kind of company he and his father before him had built. He cares about his customers, he cares about his team, and he cares about this community. I've experienced Barano Heating and Air when they installed a complete system replacement a few years ago, and I enjoy peace of mind and same-day service with my Total Comfort Service Agreement. I've also been behind the scenes at their office and seen firsthand the true character of this company. And that's why we're so proud to represent them. To learn more or to schedule an appointment online anytime, visit baranoac.com. They really always will be there for you. And now back to the show. So it seems like you're a bit insatiable when it comes to education and learning and...
You clocked me.
and widening your perspective, right? That's a theme that's been pretty consistent throughout your life.
I think that's fair. It continues to this day.
Yeah. All right. So after the AmeriCorps experience, from what I could see on your resume and the research I did, it looks like you took some time off to do some hiking with your family. Is that true?
Oh, actually... No.
Okay.
During the end of my AmeriCorps year, I did a presentation at my undergrad, and they said, you'd be really good at helping students apply for fellowships. And there's a university that's one of the best in the one of the best in the country, and it's based in Little Tallahassee, Florida.
Okay.
Do you want me to make a connection? And I thought, okay, sure. Tallahassee, Florida, not sure how to spell that, not sure where in the state of Florida it is. I absolutely called Florida State University, University of Florida by accident. It's just blame the Massachusetts girl.
Not a worse mistake you can make.
I had to learn the hard way. Got to get burned to learn. But yeah, I definitely did a lot of hiking during my year up in Massachusetts. I love hiking, but I zoomed right from AmeriCorps down to Tallahassee to work at Florida State.
So they directed you. They presented that opportunity to you?
Yeah, I absolutely needed to apply.
As an option? Yeah.
Yeah, things like that. But.
Okay. So you came down here for a job, basically.
That's right.
At first.
And I thought I'd be here 18 months and I was going to get out.
Do you know how many people say that about Tallahassee?
I would say 100%. 100% do.
All right, so you end up getting some more, back to our theme before, you end up going back and taking classes and pursuing your PhD, right, in sociology.
That's right.
Kind of the brother or sister of anthropology?
Exactly.
Okay.
There was no grad program in anthropology, and I said, sociology, here I come.
Okay. So what was your focus in that program?
So I really was interested in kind of the higher education landscape, in part because I was getting to see a lot of how the institution operated through my working role at the university. First, helping students apply for prestigious fellowships, and later I transitioned to working for the Office of Institutional Research, like the brilliant folks behind helping the university climb in national rankings and things like that. So I was learning a lot about different stakeholders, learning about how extracurricular programs worked at FSU. So I started doing research on programs that are extracurricular for STEM students, trying to improve equity and outcomes between Black and African American and Latinx students with their white and Asian counterparts, looking at different interventions or programs or classes that make the biggest impact to helping students graduate in their intended STEM degree. It's a lot of math under the hood, doing math using institutional data records of hundreds of students to better understand their outcomes, and then also focus groups and interviews and participant observation, as they say, of going and attending these different workshops and seeing how they work.
Yeah. Was it your intent to pursue your PhD at Florida State, or because of you were here and you learned about the program and then you decided that you made the decision while you were here, but did that surprise you at all that you ended up pursuing that here at FSU?
In retrospect, there's no surprise. It was maybe meant to be.
Yeah.
But for me, at the time, I was really actually thinking about my professional growth and knowing that if I wanted to, advance as a director or a dean at a university someday, that there are expectations of having a PhD. I thought, oh, well, I like doing too much at once. I'll try to take a couple classes and see how it goes. Okay. And then I just really fell in love with it. This is when I revisited math and statistics after years of doing, classical music. I think all of those skills I had gotten from classical music helped me a lot with picking up quantitative coding skills. So I dove right in.
Right. So bringing it up to date a little bit, you are currently the CEO and data scientist at Knowli Data Science. So how did you get connected to Knowli? Were you still in school, or you had just finished school when you got your first position there?
No, I was still in school. I was still working in institutional research. And it is a bit of a convoluted story, but my partner, Amy, partner in life, partner in business, partner in crime. So we had been together about 5 years, and she's a lawyer turned data scientist. She had participated, I can't go into too many details, but she had participated in supporting a fraud, waste, and abuse case at her former position. And it had involved Knowli, and being a lawyer that knew how to calculate a standard deviation, she really stood out in the room. Yeah. They approached her and said, would really be interested in you joining the company. And she said, there's another one that you need to meet.
So she brought me in.
Okay. Yeah. And so we argue about who was employee 5 or 6. We were both signed on the same day. And now we're about 25 people. So we've grown quite a lot in the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell us maybe a short version of what is a data scientist.
Okay.
How do you define that role?
Well, I can tell you how we define data science at Knowli. Our data science is driven first and foremost by subject matter expertise. So we use data to drive big decisions and data-driven decision-making for our clients. What makes us different at Knowli is that all of our folks who are doing the coding, the dashboarding, the big data analytics have some other graduate credential that makes them a subject matter expert. They're either a former doctor or a PhD, or they have some other medical or health and human service expertise that they apply to all of those statistical models that they build.
Okay. Was
that short enough?
Yeah, that was perfect. So adding on to that, if you can just give us kind of an umbrella view or a 30,000-foot view of what Knowli is all about. It's one of those companies in town that's doing amazing things and has huge impact well beyond the borders of Leon County. But not everybody may know about the company and what you do. So I'll let you give your little pitch here for what Knowli is all about, because I think more people need to know about it.
Oh, thank you. So we're a small women-owned data science company based here in Tallahassee, and we serve clients throughout the southeastern United States, mostly in health and human service sectors, but also in education, environmental policy, other kind of public policy adjacent clients that we have. And we use big data to drive and improve the decision-making process, impacting the lives of millions of folks. So one of our biggest clients is Florida Medicaid. Another big client is South Carolina Medicaid. So to give that 30,000-foot view of what we do, we're taking all of this near real-time data of every time a Medicaid enrollee goes to the doctor, gets a prescription, has a healthcare encounter. We look at those in the aggregate by the millions to then determine, are there issues in the quality of care that people are receiving? Are there interventions that could help us improve healthcare outcomes for, again, millions of folks that are receiving care? Are there any other research-based strategies that we could support in implementing so that executives can better monitor their program? They have better visual analytics of how their programs are performing. We do the whole gamut.
So like by visual analytics, like dashboards, graphic representations of the data.
Yeah, right. We're really known for being data translators. So not just speaking back the statistics at you in highfalutin language, but translating it into really smart but layperson language so that policymakers who might have a little math anxiety feel really well equipped to either read text-generated reports that accurately describe the statistics that we've run or view visual analytics as dashboards so that they can quickly monitor the hundreds of data points in their programs.
Yeah. We do that even with our marketing clients. We give them all the data on all the things that we measure, and just giving them the data or even a dashboard, most of them are like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, if you're not in the data, then without that expertise and counseling on the back end, it's not very useful. So I can see how important that is.
It's so true. We think of coaching as one of the main parts of our consulting approach, of coaching the end user to really understand and not feel like they're being, drinking from a fire hose of data, and really understanding, okay, how do these levers work in plain language? How can I use this data to improve decisions, how to improve outcomes? So that's what we do.
That's great. All right. So as you mentioned, when you look at your resume on paper, and it seems like it's kind of pursuing many different directions, in truth, when you look at what you're doing now, it's kind of a culmination, right? It's kind of a combination of all these different things that you've had interest in and have driven, your decisions over decades now. So is that how you feel about you and what you're doing right now?
It's so true. Pulling in diplomacy skills I learned from diplomats back in Lithuania, pulling in leadership skills from different experiences I've had. I feel like I'm channeling classical musician every single day in terms of attention to detail and performance and connecting with people.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Okay. So last year, you were awarded the Tallahassee Rotary Ethics in Business Award, right? And as a Rotarian, I know that's a very tremendous honor. So tell us about that award and how you feel about receiving it.
Oh, thank you. I'm blushing. This award really meant a lot to me. In particular, I was nominated by a client that we've been serving pro bono, the Southern Scholarship Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
They offer free and reduced price housing for those who might be housing insecure while they're pursuing degrees in Florida public institutions. And we had been doing some student outcomes analysis with them. And Sean Wooden, Dr. Wooden, is a Rotarian. And so he had nominated Knowli, knowing not only this kind of commitment to service that we have, but also our rapid response work that we did when we were doing research with them. And we got really quick insights from the data that their students had a high proportion of folks who were experiencing either self-diagnosed mental health issues or rated high on the depression scale. They said it was really uncommon for them to have the experience of getting that rapid feedback of saying, hey, this isn't about it's not the contracted research, but we noted this. We want you to know as soon as possible so that you can make an intervention. Because of that, they were able to secure grant funding to have a social worker provide more free counseling and therapy to their students. I think that kind of defines a lot of the Knowli approach. It's not just the math on the paper and call it a day. It's not just statistics for statistics' sake, but it's about finding ways to be as ethical and as morally guided as possible to improve the lives of people, not just the ones using the data, but the ones that the data impacts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the award.
You.
That's very cool.
Thank you.
Speaking of congratulations, at the time of our recording, just like a week ago, you were named to the Tallahassee Democrats 25 Women You Need to Know for 2025.
Such an honor.
Yeah, so that you're joining quite a group of amazing women in our community.
Don't I know it? I'm so honored, and I think it's such a cool, the 25 Club is pretty prestigious in town, and I'm excited to get to know everybody.
Yeah, that's a very exciting thing, so that's awesome. All right, you are involved in a number of community organizations, and I want to get into this a little bit. You're the co-founder of Beyond the Pantry.
That's right.
Yeah, which is a local nonprofit serving our area. So please tell us what Beyond the Pantry is all about.
Sure. Well, it started back during the days of the COVID pandemic where I, at the time, had been deployed from my Knowli contract to serve the Executive Office of Governor. So I was driving downtown every day. And it was during that quiet time of COVID where all I could notice was folks who were unhoused on the street and in a lot of need. So with my mask on, I started volunteering at different food shares and shelters, and I realized there was this huge need for not just food, but for the more pricey, expensive items like health and hygiene and underwear and socks that folks and their families really needed, but were really hard to procure by these different, meal share initiatives or nonprofits because they're pricey. So I thought, okay, is there a way that we could do this beyond just going to Dollar General on their sale Saturdays to find things? Is there a way that we can organize this? So I gathered a bunch of friends, Amy, who I've mentioned, as well as Kiki and Emily, just some friends to really organize and put our brains together of how we could put together an organization that does this in a more sustainable way. So now we serve about 15 different organizations in town where our job isn't to take the place of the amazing service work they do, but we supplement their efforts. So if they're already distributing food or supplies, we purchase health and hygiene items in bulk, and then we help distribute those throughout the community with them.
I guess it makes sense that when people think about people's immediate needs who are in those positions, food, of course, comes up, but there are other everyday, tangible, comfort needs and hygiene needs that we don't think about as quickly, probably.
Sure. I can share a story from early on of somebody that I'll call Patrick. He was somebody that we were serving alongside with Food Not Bombs, a meal share that happens every week in Tallahassee. He had unfortunately lost his job at a pizza place during COVID, and he was having trouble getting rehired because of his circumstances. He was then living on the street. He couldn't wash his hands. He would get a lot of comments about how maybe he's not of the right hygiene to work in a food place. And the truth is, it wasn't a personal or moral issue. It was just truly having access to supplies and a place to get clean to be able to show up for work. So I can't say that Beyond the Pantry gets all the credit for his turnaround in life, but in terms of thinking of those real life issues where folks need a little bit of help and these supplies aren't covered by WIC or SNAP or other government assistance programs. So it's a way that we can plug in and help people in the community.
Yeah. So if people want to get involved or learn more about Beyond the Pantry, how do they do that?
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Beyondthepantry.org.
Okay.
Or throw us an email at beyondthepantrytlh@gmail.com.
Nice. All right. Well, Emily, looking back, what is the one thing or person that has changed or altered the trajectory of your life to this point?
Oh gosh, no pressure, right?
Yeah.
I can think of so many people who deserve this credit. I'm going to actually say my career coach, Jennifer Hickman. She's a medical doctor. She's an anesthesiologist by day and career coach maven by night. And she really coached me to believe in myself as a leader. I think I had a lot of narratives of whether I didn't belong or whether I didn't have the right skills to lead a company. I don't have an MBA. I don't have maybe the same credentials that others do in the field. But she helped me really hone in on my strengths and then keep remembering that it's a growth mindset. It's about continually growing and evolving and not having to get everything right on the first try.
Yeah, that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
So I don't usually follow this pattern, but I'm going to break it here. I neglected to ask you about this. We just kind of glossed over the fact that in addition to being a data scientist, you are the CEO of Knowli.
Yes.
And so I just want to talk about that. You start there. You're working, and obviously there are some steps that you took, but now you're running the company. So tell me about that journey and kind of your role now. What does that mean?
Sure. I'm really lucky to lead this company with a great team. We have a lot of folks that support the leading of the company. So kudos to the entire team. For me, my role is really coaching our team towards the next level of not only growth in terms of contracts, growth in terms of the number of clients or the subject matter that we cover in our work, but also coaching us to improve our processes and really defining how to reduce chaos, how to improve the actionability, if I could make up a word, of the insights that we provide, and really dial us in to not just impact for the programs that we serve, but also making a local impact here. Again, I feel like we've beat a lot of the odds in terms of revenue growth of 60% in just a couple of years, growing our company to be almost triple the size in terms of employees. There's been a lot of strategic decision making along the way. And I've felt lucky to serve as part of that. I think also one of my roles is to serve as, I'll say, a cultural ambassador of Knowli. We're so committed right now to building a strong, sustainable culture because, again, we've got brilliant folks on our team that have a lot of opportunities of what they could pursue in life. And we really have to make sure that we're creating a cohesive, positive, impact-making team that's really, again, growth-oriented. The tech is changing every day. The programs that we use are changing every day. And the problems that we face in health and human services are changing. So it's really driving that engine of keeping things moving forward.
Do you enjoy that part of it?
Oh, heck yeah. I will say it's a joyful challenge. So I've had to learn a lot in the last couple of years about how to manage high pressure, high stakes, and stress. It's when I call on my old opera singing habits.
I mean, you were student body president at one point in your college journey, and so you're used to leading people, but leading a company, on a day-to-day basis and being the person, that's a little bit of a different role, right?
It absolutely is. And I think this time around in this role, I'm really driven by intentionality and by using the evidence-based practices that I read in Harvard Business Review or from other credible sources of really how to build an effective, not just efficient, but flourishing business that people want to work at, that people want to work with.
It's awesome. All right, final question.
Okay.
This podcast is named How I Got Here. So we've talked about how you got to this point in your life. Where do you think here might be for you in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, gosh. We've talked about so many of my pivots today that part of me wants to say that I have to keep it unpredictable. But I will say in terms of the here, I love this town. I love this community, and we're really building a lot of roots here. I can imagine a future in the next 3 to 5 years where Knowli has increased its, geographic span of impact. I can see growth in a lot of different areas for me personally, for the company, but I hope to do it here in Tallahassee. I love this town.
Thanks for listening to the show. You can subscribe at Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a review. It really does make a difference. Thanks to my amazing staff at Fiore Communications, who pick up the slack while I'm working on these podcasts, and to Troy Bloom for composing our theme music. You can hear more of Troy's creations on Facebook and Instagram at Troy Bloom Music. To connect with the podcast or suggest a future guest, follow us on social media or email us at podcast@fiorecommunications.com.